first order of business today is approval of minutes from June 25th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any changes? Everyone? Thanks, Mike. Open forum, is there anyone out there, Tammy? No. All right, policy 1.03. This is a new addition, and actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to go to 1.07 first because it affects that one too, and it's added to the end of it, but if we can go all the way through 1.07, then it'll finish up with adding 1.03
Okay.
on there. So 1.07, we're only looking at the area of open forum. This is what we discussed in our last meeting, and it will be going to the board tonight if we come to an agreement on what needs to go forward. I have not made any changes or suggestions since our last meeting.
Isn't the read aloud since our last meeting? Maybe I've missed that. Instead of verbally read.
Let's see.
Yeah, so we made a couple adjustments based upon comments that we had fielded. In item 1, we switched shall to may.
Yes.
Can we discuss that?
Absolutely.
I like shall.
I'm good either way.
We are pummeled constantly about transparency. So if we have to be transparent, I believe that maybe the members ought to be transparent as well.
And that's on asking members who desire to speak
Yes,
shall sign up for open forum or may sign up for open forum.
shall.
Personally, I like the may because of the situations where sometimes we have no one, and that to me feels like it leaves the chair open to ask if anyone would like to speak.
Maybe that's what the amendment to it is it is shall, if you have.
Yeah, it was shall.
Or have the discretion to call upon somebody from the crowd if there isn't something signed up, which I think would happen anyways. I mean, it's pretty logical, but I agree. It's meet us in the middle. We got to be transparent. We got to put our stuff out there. You can at least give us a heads up on yours. If you're really passionate about it, you're doing your homework anyways. You're driving all the way over here. It's not like you live.
And we made the point last time, and this happened a year or so ago, where we had a dozen people that wanted to talk about one subject and another person that wanted to talk about a totally separate subject, and we were able to address the first person's issue very quickly, and then they left, and then we went into the
Everything
dozen on the same subject, and so it made sense to do that. I don't think Doug or I are bound by either of those words, whatever the committee wants.
I just think if you can't put your name down and the topic that you want to talk about when you come in the door, because it's right there, then you ought not speak.
Honestly, I can't say I disagree. Do you think if it says shall, that limits us in any way from asking for others to speak in a meeting?
No, we've done it up to this point anyway. It says shall, but it seems like the norm is for the chair to ask, are there any other people who want to comment?
Okay.
And then we allow them to comment. So the practice has been to address it that way.
So you're for shall.
I'm
You guys
either
think-
way. I'm fine.
Either way. Mike?
I like shall.
Shall? Yeah, I'm good with that.
Better call shall.
It's a good show.
The next change that we made was to number 2, and we, instead of verbally read in real time, we replaced that with read aloud,
Read aloud.
which is
I like it.
pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yep.
You could say read, but I would hate people to think that you could read it and not
Yeah.
state it. So read aloud is pretty clear. And then the next change was adding section 7, recording of meetings. This one's a little bit longer. Meetings open to the membership will be streamed on social media in real time by the association, plus an unedited, and that's a really important word, unedited copy of the recordings will be made available on the association's website. No other individual, group, or entity will be allowed to record or stream these meetings without the express written permission of the association.
Well, this is good. I mean, I think that this puts the ball back in our court and kind of keeps people from using our likeness and images for their own kind of folly and fun. And that's what I think we've seen from the examples that have been out there, that it isn't like journalism on us necessarily. It's something else entirely. So I like that we're providing a recording. You know, I mean, that's and we have the transcript. I'm not quite sure why a redundant person would be needed in the crowd anyways, other than to make their own alternative edits.
And that's why we use the operative word unedited. I mean, it'd be one thing if we were cutting and pasting
Yeah.
and doing all sorts of goofy stuff to it, but it's what is recorded is what is shared.
We can do that, Doug, even though this is a public meeting?
Yes, yeah, it's, I was going to make that point. You may have some that will claim, that their First Amendment rights are being violated, but we're not a government actor, we're not a government entity, and those are the only types of people who can violate First Amendment rights, are government actors.
And the meetings are not open to the public, they're open to the membership.
I'm all for it. I just
Yeah,
want
these
to
are
make sure that
membership
somebody-
meetings.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that somebody doesn't.
Well, I mean, we only have really one person other than like maybe somebody pulling out their cell phone in the big to-do to try to capture something. I mean, it's really only one actor that's coming in and doing this. I don't know who will be liable or part of the enforcement of this. I know we have an officer that's going to be here. I'm sure we have POA security of some sort, management. So if this actor shows up with the camera, we've instated this bylaw or whatever we call this, and we say this restriction, and we say, hey, sorry, according to our new restriction here, it says you can't have that. And then what is that scenario look like? Let's go through that a few times, and because it will come up, and then we'll have to figure out how that is handled. So I guess it's probably reaching out to the known member that does that, and go ahead and alerting them right up front of the rule change to try to mitigate a scene here physically at the time of a meeting. Because I could see that whole, and then Doug having to try to say some legal jumbo to him that he doesn't care about. And then he's got record going the entire time. You make any movement towards this camera, it's going to look all aggressive that he'll be able to use. It's totally what's going to happen. So figuring out what the next scenario of enacting this and who's going to enforce it is, to me, just as important as writing it.
Well, I'd say that we would notify the individual in advance in a polite and respectful manner. If the person decides to ignore that, then I would probably approach the individual in a polite and respectful manner and state that they need to leave. And if it got anything beyond that, then I would turn it over to the officer.
You do have other instances other than our regular monthly meetings. In particular, I've noticed a couple at Reardon Hall, maybe the annual meeting, it happens as well, and there was one where we had a trails meeting where various people are out there in the audience with their cell phones and things like that. So it isn't like, to Mike's point, I think it's important to notify the membership as best we can that this is going to be in place, and that's why we have multiple readings of it.
I guess I just feel like we're trying to solve for something that I don't see as a very big issue right now. I do understand that we have one member that is using likenesses and he's editing and changing the content. It didn't used to be that way. It was fully transparent. It was full videos that were being shared with the membership, and now it's not. It's going down a different path, and I know that's one of the issues, but I just don't know that it's that big of an issue that we need to put it into a policy at this point. Members, if they want to film on their phone, let them. I did when I was here in the audience. My husband filmed me the first time I stood up to talk to you guys. It wasn't for any other reason than it's just human nature right now. You got your phone, you record something. So I don't know that it's necessary.
I think if we put the product out there, which we do with our own Facebook recording, and that should be sufficient all the way around. I don't think we need multiple outlets coming into video, especially if they cut it up and make political statements or demeaning statements. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. The other issue is recording before the meeting starts,
That's true.
which is apparently a common practice.
Well, and just because we don't see the recorder doesn't mean the recorder isn't there. So, I think there's, a fair amount of this one member that just has to be come to his senses about some portion of this. I don't think we're stopping recording culture. It's all the features that every one of these devices is sold on, so I don't see that stopping anytime soon. But I also don't see our images and I don't think this one member's example is going to be a one-off. I think as long as recording culture and making your own posts and stuff is a thing, we'll probably deal with some of this again. So I don't find it bad to have it in our language to at least back it up. And it's just enforcement. I think we always can write anything, but it's who enforces it. So I'm all for it being in there. I just hope we have a good plan on how to enforce it.
Well, we might want to say at the beginning of every meeting that recordings, whether audio or video or both, are not allowed. Please put away your cell phones and your cameras. Thank you very much.
I get it. I mean, the three of you are very well spoken in the reasons why, and I agree that the enforcement's going to be the hard part. So, I mean, yes, it can go forward to the board and discuss more for sure. Okay, and that actually goes into policy 1.03 as well, discussing JACs and election committee, operational committees, and special or ad hoc committees and task forces. It's adding it to the very end of 1.03 as well, same wording, same statement of recording of meetings.
Yep.
Okay, let me see. I had a member comment on a couple things that I wanted to bring up. One of the main things in the email from the member was asking why we're asking for topics, and I just want to state out loud that asking for topics is in no way going to hurt members or not allow members to speak or cherry pick what we want to be said in meetings in any way. That is not what these changes are for. It is just as Tom and I and David, we've responded to members about it, saying that it is just for the politeness of if there is a member here that wants to talk about their issues with the ACC or their issues on anything else and we have 50 others, it's polite and allows us to ask to change the order.
Yeah.
And that's really all it is not going to affect their 3 minutes, their ability to speak in any way. Let's see what else there was. Verbally read to read out loud has already been dealt with. And there were some questions about the very last section of 1.0, not last now, the section of alternative to attending the meetings. That is not to dispute anything that is above the policy in section 5. Section 6, the alternative to attending meetings, is just reminding members that you can always email the board. You do not have to only speak to us at meetings. You can come to us at any time through email. You can call us. Our numbers are up on the website too. But it's just a reminder. It has nothing, no bearing on the open forum section at all. It's just a reminder to email, and we will answer your questions when we can, and possibly elect to read those at board meetings. Okay?
And I think it's important because the board and management receives a lot of emails, and we're able to respond. I received an email today, responded. The property owner responded back and forth. We had a little exchange. Depending upon the timing, they would have potentially had to wait 3 or 4 weeks to get an answer. That's,
Yeah.
Send us an email. I was able to respond I responded within an hour of this member sending me the email. I prefer they send an email because we can respond very quickly, as opposed to waiting for it to be read at a board meeting 2 or 3 or 4 weeks later and then responding at that time. We can respond very quickly.
Plus, if they send an email, you have before you answer it, you have access to all of the data required to
Yeah.
respond.
Yeah,
If
some-
they ask the same question here, they're not going to get an answer that day.
Some of the questions some of the emails come in. At times it takes an hour or two to research it to make sure you get the answers right. You don't have that luxury when they're here, and then sometimes you have to say, "Well, I'll get back to you." I'd rather, spend the time, get a response in a timely manner. I encourage property owners to send us an email.
This morning at senior staff, several of the senior managers commented that they had been thanked by membership for their prompt response to emails. Apparently, it's not very common to get a prompt response, and I know we do try to do that, and get back to people quickly as soon as we can put the answer together. But people appreciate it, and they like to know that we're being responsive to their questions. So,
Yeah, we try and be as responsive as possible, but Carmen pointed out, normally, in a normal year, we, at Member Services, we field about 30,000 calls. We're on track to field 50,000 this year.
Oh, my God.
So we are responding to our property owners as quickly as possible, but, going from 30,000 to 50,000 is a large undertaking.
that with the increase in activity cards being sold, guest cards being processed, and boat registration, it just, the numbers are through the roof.
Yeah.
They are very, very busy at Member Services.
Response time reminds me that I did have the same member ask this, and another board member actually reached out and asked me a question about the 24-hour in advance of the meeting. If in the event of a virtual meeting, if members want their comments read and their emails are sent, the reason for the 24-hour suggestion in advance of the meeting is like that entire discussion we just had. That provides time to give an answer when the email is read. It provides Tammy time to organize the agenda and which need to be read, get them ready for David. It is not so that we're cutting off a member. They have every other day of the month that they can send an email. It is not to, oh, well, you don't have time because it's only 12 hours to the meeting. That is just out of respect for our employees, out of respect for us, being able to research them. It is very needed to be able to have a time limit, because if they're sent in an hour before the meeting, Tom can't research anything.
Yeah.
It's not going to be effective for the member. That was it. Not stating. Any new business? Or actually, do we have to vote to pass that?
Vote to recommend
Vote to
send it to the
recommend.
board.
Okay, vote to recommend.
Each one individually?
Each one individually, because you might like one but not the other, so prefer to do it individually. And then the next question is, do you want this to go tonight? Because the rest of the board, David sent out some of these to inform the board but they haven't had quite as much time to digest them, so I just want, so then the question is the recommendation for it to go forward tonight, or is it going forward next month?
I would recommend tonight. It still gives us time. We still have another meeting to discuss it as well. So.
Correct, yeah, it takes 2 votes, so you're correct. If they approve it tonight and then they reconsider, they can always bring that up before that.
It gives
And-
us time to meet again before the next meeting if there's a reason to bring it back to rules and regs tonight.
And we can modify it because what they received from David included the may instead of the shall, and so we'll go into the back and quickly change that to shall.
Okay. Motion?
Which one, the may and shall?
No, I would.
That's not it.
1.03.
Oh, okay, we'll go there.
A second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Okay.
Unanimous. All right, motion for the next one?
That would be number 7.
1.07.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendations for 1.07 points, or 7, number 7, recording of meetings.
Second.
Hold on, are you recommending all of the
I'm
changes?
making all the changes, yes.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure.
I see what you're saying, I'm sorry.
Or how about 1.07?
1.07 changes.
As presented with the amendment to go with shall instead of may.
Yep.
And read-
Phrase that right, Doug?
and
Yeah,
read
yeah,
aloud.
That's right.
And read aloud.
Correct.
That
But
was-
remember, those are the latest changes. In the other colors, we have the changes that would have been made previously by the rules and regs. So I just want to make sure we're
Yeah.
capturing all of those changes except for the shall.
So everything in the agenda in front of you in the red and blue, the only exception is changing may to shall.
Correct.
Yes.
Is that good, Doug?
I second that.
All in favor?
Mary, we wanted you to restate that motion now.
Oh, thanks. No, thank you.
Do we have any new business tonight?
No.
Are we going to take up at any point 3.04?
One of the things that
Another
had been brought up was, I think it was David that brought it up, is letting it go for a couple months. Let's see how it works. At the Lakes Committee meeting and at the Rec Committee meeting, we discussed the special events for 2020, and those were voted upon by those respective committees.
Right.
But let's see how it
Okay.
plays out, at least for several months. And then what I would recommend is if the committee wants to make any change to it, let's make sure that those changes are finalized by the board by the December meeting, because we talked about wanting the committees, Lakes and Rec, to vote on those in January. So that means that I would recommend the rules and regs at the latest bring this back up in October. That way, any changes are put into the first reading would be November, second reading would be December, January it goes into effect, and that's when the committees would discuss it. That would give us several months to see how it goes.
It
see if
gives us the summer months where all of this stuff happens.
Right. But with that being said, it is a COVID year, so
Yeah.
many of the events are getting canceled, so it's hard to, it's not a typical year.
Yeah.
But at least it will give us a couple months to get our feet underneath us, see how it's going, and then make informed changes.
I think it's important for employees to understand the differences and the wording and the actions of how this changed the way we look at guests and members. And we need that experience before we know quite what to change.
Mm-hmm. And we've talked about in the committees, I've stated, just because we've had the event for years and years does not mean it continues. This is a new set of rules, and we have to rethink how we have done things. And
Yeah.
they've been very good about recognizing that it's a new set of rules.
Yeah, and the rec committee had great suggestions from some of the volunteer committee members for looking at pricing and looking at the way that it's handled when members sign up and making sure that members came first in all of these events that do allow participant guests. So it started a great discussion.
Good.
Yeah, I'll tune in on that real quick. I think that all this member first and guests and things is like at the best intersection right now. I think that the discussion of who's a member and who's a guest was sorely needed, and it's repurposing value to being a member, and it's making us more and more alluring, but it also is making us great hosts too. So like guests, it's a privilege to have a guest. You're in a really great position to host in this world. It's rare that you can have guests, and we have a city and an environment and an amenity base that has a lot of vested interest on having guests. And so, but we're also really excited about having our own stuff, and being able to see that value and reconfirm that value to people. I love all these discussions. I don't think it's bad at all that guests are here. I think it's actually drives up wanting to be a member. So I like it all. I don't see us, I love this sample set of data that we're going to get out of this. And to Tia's point, implementation is everything. It's like we can write, but how is it actually able to be enacted in any sort of way? And staff is got a million things that they have to follow, and this will be one of the bigger ones that comes up.
Yeah.
So it's going to reshake how your first moments in addressing a customer. And it's almost I don't know, the Walmart world, it's like the 5-foot rule. It's almost going to have to be one of these things that's one of their very first training moments, it feels like. And it's to define who and who isn't, but not from a negative standpoint. Because there's two different customer service routes that then happens right at that moment of learning, whether they're a member or a guest. And that's a whole training for us. It's a change completely. So I'm excited for the discussions, and I think it'll be lively throughout the rest of the year as we continue to refine it and hopefully define it. So I'm excited for it.
And it's very important because we're seeing, we'll know the numbers at the end of the month, but it looks like the activity card sales are up 40% over prior year. So if we didn't have COVID, let's take the beach for example, would the beach would have 40% more members using it than last year? Well, that's a challenge, and we might, we got to take care of the membership because we may not have space enough for 40% increase in membership usage, or the gyms. I mean, like I said, if COVID wasn't here, it'd be interesting to see. I wonder if we'd be up even higher if. But we may have to relook at our facilities from a capital investment point of view and go, wow, we have to make the gym facility at Reardon larger because we have so many more members wanting to use it. So we got to take care of the members before the non-members.
Yep.
But we pointed that out when we were talking about the 2020 plan, that there's the potential that we will outuse the existing facilities because of the new pricing plan.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell. I mean, you got COVID going on where everybody's sitting at home, plus the new pricing plan going in March. Which one has caused all of this increase?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Well, rediscovering Bella Vista is amazing. And given the additional time, I guess, spent at home and the new influx of residents, a lot of people are discovering our rich amenity base here. And It was underused and small to begin with. It's only going to get more used and smaller going forward. It's really good in that you want any facility, like any gym right now, people are dropping their memberships, but we at least have a built-in revenue for our gyms. You know, so like this COVID world is revealing what looked like somewhat a busted business plan of the POA into actually looking a bit more solid than others. So I think it's good.
Well, at the last golf JAC, when they put out the numbers about rounds played, 5,000 rounds
7.
at Brittany?
Oh, yeah, 5,000 rounds at Brittany, that's,
I mean, that, it used to be like 20.
yeah,
Didn't
it's
it? I mean,
great.
It was low.
And what we're finding, these are a little bit loose numbers, but we're finding that of new members, you know, they just purchased a home, they just purchased a lot. We're at about 75% of new members buying an activity card. That's very high. And they're not just asking
they
for
came here for
it,
a
they're
reason. They know
demanding
what
it.
they're
I
getting.
want it right now. I just bought, I want to go use the amenities. I mean, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So-
You know, it's interesting, the member services with the amazingly increased workload that they've taken on, have done it pretty seamlessly. Yeah, there's been some hiccups, but pretty seamlessly. When well, this morning I called a customer service organization for somebody that I deal with, and I waited for an hour before I got somebody to talk to. Fortunately, I can just walk around the house and do stuff. And then once I got her on the line, I was on for another hour trying to resolve the issue.
Wow.
And I mean, they always say it's COVID. Well, if you had a customer service organization of 100 people before, why aren't there 100 people sitting in their houses doing this? Which is essentially what we did.
Yeah. You know, and what I've challenged the staff to deal with is to reimagine our operations. We all hope that COVID will be over in the next couple of weeks or months, but what if it goes into 21? God, what if it goes further than that? I don't, you know, hopefully not. But we need to think differently, and we can't just sit on our hands and hope this goes away. We have to think differently. I went into a store over the weekend, and they've already redesigned their counter so that you can ensure social distancing. And you know, so they put investment into redesigning and redoing their counter, because you can still take care of people non-COVID, but this takes care of them when they're in COVID situation. And we need to think that way of, you know, are we going to, at BV Bar and Grill, are we going to have people sitting in the Vista room?
Forever.
Who knows for how long? Because that allows us to spread everybody out and be in compliance with the governor's office. So we have to rethink things, and we can't just assume it's going to go away anytime soon.
Forced evolution. I mean, sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
there's necessity for the change. So.
Well, our next topic is meeting date. Do we want to set one today or wait to see how this goes tonight and then we can reconvene on email and set a date for our next meeting?
I'd rather wait.
Yeah.
Till- See how it goes tonight.
Okay. That is it, unless anybody has anything. All right.
Just pounds.
We are adjourned. Thanks, David.
Wow.